Hi, I'm Chuck Dorsett for Weaver Leathercraft, and we're making two beautiful leather cuffs. Now in Chapter 1, we used a chrome tan leather. We cut it, punched some holes, set some snaps, and we have a nice blank. But we're going to jump over now to what's known as a natural veg tan leather. It's going to make all the difference in the world, because with a veg tan, now we can dye this ourselves, and we can get some gorgeous colors. But also too, we can stamp it. Going to put a very nice basket weave stamp in this. But also, we're going to drop in some antique, make that stamp pop for us. And two, the top coat, going to give that a nice gloss. Now, everything I use in this video, weaverleathercraft.com, or just check below. We've got links there. They'll take you straight to the website. So with this, as always, our pattern is critical. We've got to take our time here because everything downhill will depend on that. So let's step over here and get our patterns going. Now let's start with our red cuff, because that looks like that's going to be an extremely complicated design. Strangely enough, it's very easy and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. It's just a long V. Now, your cuff, your call. We're just going to look at some dimensions here, maybe get a feel for the whole thing. All right, on my wrist, I'm 7 inches snap to snap. So let's make our marks here. Let's mark at 1 and 7. Let's circle those and just write in snap. All right, we're going to build everything out from there. There we go. All right, on this end, of course, I don't want the end of my strap right across there, which is an easy mistake to make. So let's add 3/4 of an inch past our outside snap hole. All right, on this end, again, your cuff, your call, but I'm going to add 4.5 inches there. So let's bring that out, make a mark at 4.5. Easy enough. Now, on this end, 3-inch width. So therefore, I'm going to square along my center line. Draw a line and mark at 1.5. Therefore, 1.5 on each side is going to give us 3 inches. So let's square across that, bring it out. There's our next mark. All right, 3-inch width there. Now at this end, I want 1 inch across on my snap, because my snap head, that's going to be 5/8 of an inch. So I want a little room on either side of that. So right here, let's draw a line and make a mark 1/2 inch from either side. And then our end point. Let's go ahead and draw a line there so we know where our stop is. Easy enough. Now let's just connect these lines. Now I'm going to have to extend that a little bit. Our cuff actual is about 12.5 inches, and my square is only 12, but that is easily done. And extend that. There we go. Well, there's our cuff. Pattern is ready to go. You can take this empty canvas and run with it. For our decorations, we're simply going to drop in 1/4 inch nickel spots. We're going to bring those 1/4 inch in from our edge, and we're going to give them 3/4 inch spread. So let's do this. I can certainly mark down here at 1/4 inch in, but with a line that thin, it's relatively easy to see that that's parallel from my square. So let's do that on the other side. Now we're going to stop our spots just a bit short of our snap, so I'm really not going to worry about taking those any further. Now, right here on our snap center line, I'm going to square across my center line there, draw a line. Perfect. Now if I work from that line, everything's going to be symmetrical and balanced. So, 3/4 inch spread, simply going to drop in a mark, 3/4 inch all the way down, then I'm going to move my square over, do the same thing on this side. At my last spot, there we go. Very balanced, that's what we're looking for. Now, let's do this. Let's make this a little professional. I'm going to take a cap. You can certainly use a template, but actually I think this is the cap from the gum trag. I'm going to drop that in, draw in a round corner. There we go. That looks great. That's going to look very nice. Now down at this end, let's just do round corners here. Well, that looks good. Easy pattern thus far, all right? Let's do some good pattern maintenance here, because I'm going to circle marks where I need to punch a hole in black. Now where that's important is this. I'm going to mark spots where I need to mark and not punch a hole in red. Because if I punch a hole where I need a spot, spot's not going to sit in there, and that panel or project is ruined and we have to start over. So let's mark this down. There we go, very clean, very tight pattern. Now, this fits 7 inches. So let's make that mark. And I believe our total length here looks like 12 1/4. Let's just write that, 12 1/4 inch blank. Now we know what we need to start with. Very cool, looks good. I'm going to cut this out, move all of this aside, then we're going to jump over to the pattern for our brown cuff. All right, we're set and ready to go. Now I've drawn in some lines here. We've got 2 straps in our main body. This looks complicated, but it's not, because all of these measurements, they're going to fall into place. You're going to see exactly what I'm talking about. But at the same time, I've done a lot here because I want us to get a feel for the stamping, some edge work, spots, some dye, because sky is the limit on cuffs. Now here's a simple black cuff, and you would think that that stamp would disappear with that black dye. It just pops. That is a gorgeous detail. But notice too, very simple straps where we have spots and groove lines, but also too with our stamping. There's a cool little double wrap cuff with a simple stamp, some antique, and some top coat. Here, now this, again, that should look familiar. But here we have that very cool feather look. That is going to look very nice, maybe with some spots on the edges. So again, sky's the limit here. This is just one design. All right, so let's do this. Let's make this super easy. First off, we know the first measurement. My wrist is 7 to 7, snap to snap. But we've got 2 pieces of leather here. So that's going to chew up a little real estate when we make our bend. Now, I don't want that butting right together. That's going to be uncomfortable. So let's back off a little bit. I'm 7 inches there. So let's go with 6.5 inches as our length, because we're going to have a small billet here. It's going to give us room to work. Okay? Easy enough, 6.5, and our width is going to be 2.5. Now, first thing, we're going to need spots or rivet holes on both ends to secure our straps and our billet. So let's do this. Let's go ahead and come in 1/2 inch from either end, and that's going to be our rivet line. All right, easy enough, okay? Let's do this. We want a little extra room there because we're going to have some billet. Well, we're at half there, so let's come in another half and just draw a line in there. That's going to be the outside edge of our box where we're going to do our stamping. Well, cool, that's easy enough. All right, let's set our rivet holes. I want to come in 3/8 inch from either side because this strap, 1/2 inch wide. Add 1/8 inch on either side, that's 3/4 inch. Half of that is 3/8 inch. So, on our rivet line, not our edge or our box, on our rivet line, let's come in 3/8 inch from either side. And there we go. Let's circle those. Last rivet here, easy enough. We're going to put that right in the center. So 2.5, 1 1/4. Right there, there's our center hole. 1 1/4, there's our center hole. You know what? Our body is almost done. As complicated as that looks, we're almost there. All right, let's do this. We're coming in 3/4 inch. We already figured that out. So let's drop in a line, 3/4 inch from either edge. And we're going to drop that line just to make our box. And again, 3/4 from this side. Now I could measure 3/4 down here, but it's really relatively easy to see that I am perfectly parallel there. All right, there's our box for our stamping. You know what? Our body's done. That was easy enough. Now what I do want to do is I'm going to clip my corners and we're ready to go. We'll come back and mark this shortly. All right, again, to save us a little time, I've got our 1/2 inch strap with a center line. Now, let's don't make this mistake. That is 5.5 inches from hole to hole, from that rivet to that rivet. Here's the problem. We don't want to make our strap that length. We need that to pop up just a little bit. Screw that back down. There we go. We need that to stand up just a little bit. So let's take 5.5 and add 1/4 of an inch. So let's go 5 3/4. Circle those. But let's don't make the mistake of thinking that that's the end of our strap. What I want to do is add 1/2 inch to either end because we're going to do a round end punch there. That strap's done. All right, let's add some decoration. We're going to use spots, centered. We're going to put 5 in at 3/4 of an inch spread. So that is 5 3/4 of an inch. Well, let's make this easy on ourselves. I'm going to back up 1/8 of an inch. So therefore, I'm centered at 6. There's my center mark. All right, let's mark in 2 on either side at 3/4 of an inch out and circle those. Those are our spots. It's going to look great. Cool, that strap's done. Well, easy enough again. All right, let's jump over to our billet because on the surface, how are we going to measure this length? It's super easy. I'm going to go from this rivet hole. Now, I'm 7 inches, all right? But again, we've got a bunch of leather there that's making a curve or a bend. So let's add 1/2 of an inch to that. So let's come out to 7.5 inches. Well, there's my hole for that billet. Okay, so 2 inches. Let's come up here. There's a rivet hole. Let's come out. There's our sand brown, and I'll explain that. Well, easy enough. Again, that strap basically made itself. So let's do this. Drop in. There's our end cut. Now, on this other end, we would typically go 1/2 inch, easy enough. But we're going to use what's called a sand brown post. Old school, but these are cool. We simply make a hole with a small slit, and that fits on easily. But notice I need a little tab here. So let's go 3/4 of an inch past the end of that hole, and that's the end of that strap. Very nice. Let's draw in round ends just so we know where those will work for us, but we'll punch those with a tool. All right, easy enough. Now let's do some good pattern maintenance. Let's don't get confused here because there's a lot to look at. These are holes. We're actually going to punch a hole there, so we're going to mark those in black. Now for our spots, because we don't want to punch a hole there. We want to make sure we do not punch a hole here or our spot's not going to sit. Let's circle those in red. Well, our pattern is made, and that's super easy. So all we have to do now is cut and punch some leather. So I'm going to cut this out. I'll meet you on the main table. Let's cut some leather. Good looking pattern. Now a couple quick notes before we mark and cut. First off, Herman Oaks, one of the highest quality leathers, in my opinion, in the world. But here's the thing, it's hard for us crafters to justify buying a 24-25 foot side. So 12 by 24 inch panels, we can use the best leather on the market and it's affordable to us. Secondly, pattern paper, not great, but my point here is we all have copy paper, easy to make a pattern. Now if this works, everything works on it, fits, everything's symmetrical, I'll trace this on to a plastic sheeting pattern. That's our plastic sheeting and it makes a great pattern material, very durable. Last thing, pen. Not great on leather, but we're going to cut inside of our pen line and bevel that edge, so therefore almost no risk of us having pen on our final pattern. And my last round corner, and if you're not really comfortable trying to cut that curve, then you can just make a lot of small cuts and that will be a good round nonetheless. Okay, so our pattern looks pretty good, or our panel looks pretty good. Let's do this. To keep from making a mistake, what I want to do is with my awl, I'm going to mark only the holes where we're going to actually punch a hole. And again, that'll keep us from making a serious mistake. So let's set that aside. I'm going to move this, bring in our second cuff, the brown cuff, and let's cut the leather on that. Now, for our brown cuff, straight lines. This is a great cuff. We're going to use our 2 to 3 ounce Herman Oak, where we used our 7 to 8 while ago. That's pretty thin for a leather. That's pretty thin for a veg tan. But because we've got these 2 extra straps on there, it's going to really make it feel substantial. But also, too, it's going to be comfortable. So all I need to do with this, straight lines everywhere. I'm going to mark, mark, and mark. Okay, easily seen. But while this is down, while this pattern is down, let's go ahead and mark for our punch holes. And last, let's go ahead and mark the corners on our panel, because here we're going to use a swivel knife to give us a border line outside of our basket weave. And my last cut. All right, that piece is ready to go. Now we could cut our two smaller straps just by hand with our square, but let's use this opportunity to use a wooden strap cutter. This is one of the most useful, helpful tools in my shop. Now, this strap, 1/2 inch, so what I can do is set this cross arm to 1/2 inch, butt that against the edge of my leather, and simply pull. 1/2 inch strap every time. Here, times 2. So let's cut a second. Nice. Now, let's jump up to 5/8 inch, because our little billet for our sand brown is 5/8. Give that a good tightening. There we go. How easy is that? Okay, so I've marked these, save a little time. I've marked our length on these. So right here, we need 6 3/4. So let's take both straps, butt against the end of our square, and go 6 3/4 inches. Let me double check that. Yep. There we are. All right, those straps are ready to mark. Now right here, this 5/8 by 3 1/4 inch. So let's drop that out. Very nice. So our pieces are ready to cut. Now, as always, let's go ahead and mark our punch holes. There we go. Mark both of those. And last, let's jump up here and mark our billet. Very nice. That pattern is ready to go, ready to punch. So follow me to chapter 3. We're going to do our edge work. We're going to do our end punches, our round end punches, and all of our round holes. Going to make these look very professional and finished.